Welcome back, everybody, to Gunslingers right here on
the Gunslinger Syndicated Radio Network, folks.
And now it's time for one of my favorite parts of the show, phone calls.
Here we go.
Let's get to our friend Captain Rick. I want to say thanks for holding on so long. What's going on?
Hey, Captain.
Well, you know what? That was an exciting segment. I was glad to listen on hold. I actually heard my commercial for my show.
I did too,
yeah. I just realized something.
Huh.
My commercial is more exciting than the show itself.
Oh,
come on. You're riveting.
Oh, boy, I tell you. I really like that segment. You know why when I lock up all my firearms collection in the closet, they don't get lonely?
Never alone, side by side.
Well, they got all kinds of friends in their chambers.
we got
your favorite music, the Chambers Brothers?
Oh, they were the greatest.
Yeah.
Here's a question next time you have Serpa Rick on, because he's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how the battle's going with the California roster. What's coming up? We've had some minor losses, but not. It's still like the same, because I'm really interested in the new Walter. Has a PP, not the PPK. They're coming out with, I think it's commemorative. I'm not really sure yet. Do you know about that new Walter, the PP? I think it's in 380.
Well, the standard PPK is usually in 380. It can also come in 32 auto and also in 22. But the James Bond one that everybody always wants is usually the 380. Yeah.
Well, they got one coming out that's not a PPK. It's a PP, which I believe was their original.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be very interesting. So I'm very interested if you could have a segment next time you have Serpa Rick on to talk about, the roster, because I tell you, the roster, even in the ideology and theory, doesn't make it safer. People have different sizes, women and men. The more variety and the more stuff on the roster, the safer it is for everybody, because everybody's different. So that roster, is absolutely defeats the purpose that it claims to try to do.
Yeah, but that was never the purpose. Yeah. The California gun roster was what he's talked about. And any handgun to be sold in the state of California, manufacturer must submit 3 guns of each color, type, and barrel length, pay an extortion fee to the Department of Justice, then have it tested. Once it's passed the test, which is, amongst other things, you have to drop it from 6 feet.
Drop it from overhead.
Yeah,
for most people.
Because that happens to guns all the time. Mm-hmm. And then you pay another extortion fee, then it goes on the list. If it's not on the list, you cannot buy it and sell it or import it into the state.
Unless you're law enforcement, then it's safe.
Yeah.
Or if you purchase it from law enforcement,
now
it's safe. Yeah. It's a magical mystery.
And I know where it's at. It went to a judge ruled against it. They put a stay on it. Then it went to the 3-judge panel, and that voted for us. Then it went to the en banc. They voted against us because it was like 6 to 2, leftists versus normal people. And now it's waiting on the Supremes.
And like you said, it limits people to be safe and comfortable, because you'll never fire anything you're not comfortable with, and so that'll limit people's experience.
Well, guns like the Smith & Wesson Model 29, the most powerful handgun in the world.
Okay, which by the way was safe for decades,
but now is unsafe according to California. And all it ever was a backdoor way to get guns away from us. Yep. It's no more, Rick, and no less.
If you're looking for logic, there is none except for their desire to control.
Yeah.
It's the illusion of safety.
It's horrible. It's horrible what these people do, and they use it as, they posture for their campaigns, and they do nothing to prevent, what they call gun violence, the criminals. These laws don't prevent bank robbers and cartel members and the human trafficking and the gang members. Well, when you got Leon's coming, is he coming up next week?
No, he was here last week, and we'll have him back in August.
Well, when he comes back in August, you can confirm this, because half of all the Chevys ever made are still on the road, and the other half made it home.
I'm pretty sure that was Ford's, but what Ford stands for what again? Fix or repair daily. Yeah. Found on road dead.
Fix it again tomorrow.
There you go. All right, Rick. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Captain. Great.
Awesome, great segments today.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you later. All right, let's jump over to Jay in Los Angeles, who's also been waiting a long time. Jay, thanks so much for waiting.
How's it going?
Good. What can we do for you?
My name is Jay Margolis, New York Times bestselling author. I currently wrote a New York Times bestseller called The Murder of Marilyn Monroe, Case Closed.
Okay.
And I want to talk about Robert Kennedy and the assassination of Robert Kennedy. I'm writing a book called Exposing Bobby Kennedy's True Assassin. And it wasn't Sirhan, at the Ambassador Hotel.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that there were two other gunmen behind Kennedy who were also firing while Sirhan was firing facing Kennedy, so they were in the opposite direction behind Kennedy. My question is about gun knowledge. I was going to ask you guys some questions. Now, normally it's been determined that Sirhan was firing the Ivor Johnson cadet revolver 22, firing 22
caliber.
bullets.
I don't know that it was an Ivor Johnson. I thought it was a H&R.
Yeah.
Harrington and
The
Richardson.
H&R was a gun that was owned by St. Eugene Caesar, who was the second shooter behind Kennedy, who was wearing an A security guard uniform at the time.
Okay.
He is known as the second shooter. And he did own one during the time. He lied to authorities and said he sold his H&R 922 before the assassination in February, but the assassination was in June 5th, 1968. He really sold it in September, a few months later.
Okay.
And so he sold it to Jim Yoder over there, and he, got some payment for that. But my point is this: so that he also had that was a 9-shot gun.
Yeah.
And Sirhan's was 8-shot gun. Now, when you look at the ballistics here, there were 6 other victims besides Kennedy who got shot one time each. That accounts for 5 of the 8 supposed bullets of Sirhan. Now, Kennedy was fired upon 4 times. 1 bullet went harmlessly through his suit coat, and then 1 bullet went into his armpit and it lodged into his neck and stayed there. And then 1 bullet went into his head and stayed there. So that accounts for 5 plus 2 is 7. And then there was another a bullet that also went into his armpit before the headshot. The second bullet that went in his armpit that actually went through and through. And so what we're dealing with is you got 5 plus 2 is 7, and then there were FBI agent William Bailey asserted that he found 2 bullets lodged, 222 caliber bullets lodged at the door frame. That's 9. What that means is that's 1 more than Sirhan had in his gun, and that means there's more than 1 shooter. Now my question for you is, the one that went into Kennedy's head was a hollow point, and it exploded. So when Sirhan, when the autopsy surgeon, Dr. Thomas Noguchi, did the autopsy on Robert Kennedy, he never was able to determine if that was a 22 caliber bullet because it had exploded so much. It was too fragmented. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, we know that the gun that Caesar had, the H&R 922, was a 22 caliber. We know that Sirhan's had a 22 caliber. But my book also, I interviewed witnesses who saw a 3rd shooter. So we don't know what caliber this person was firing. Now, could it be, Caesar always said that he was carrying the 38, at the time. But isn't that a little bit loud? Because some of the witnesses said that the gunshots were not, really loud.
Well, I don't think a 38 necessarily is going to be that much louder in a small room than a 22 is going to be.
In a closed environment, a 22 is going to sound like an act of God.
Yeah, so,
right.
But some of the flaws I've seen with some of the things that, documentaries and such that I've seen about this, people say, well, there's a hole here, but they never proved there was an actual bullet in there. So, they're talking about holes, but if a hole was made
through and through,
a bullet, yeah, I'm talking about like in the door, and let's face it, the LAPD did a pretty rugged job of, they tore the whole door out and the door, what do you call it, around the door?
The jam.
The door jam, and then they disposed of it. I mean, there was some pretty shoddy work going on, and so that would always tend to lead people to think that, maybe this is a conspiracy. It's hard to say. I mean, I wasn't there.
Right, I know what you're saying. You're trying to assert that there could have been ricochets to account for that. William Bailey made an affidavit in which he said he looked into the actual holes. Now, that's you're right. You have to be responsible about this. You don't know if they're ricochets or just holes. Mm-hmm. And so Bailey said he's an FBI agent. His credibility has never been challenged. His affidavit was by Vincent Bugliosi. He did the Manson murder thing. Mm-hmm. A famous attorney. I'm sure you know who he was.
And writer, yeah.
He took an affidavit from William Bailey, this FBI agent. And the FBI agent, if you looked at the recent President Trump released reports, the FBI is asserting a second gunman scenario while the LAPD is trying to cover up to try to do a one gunman scenario.
No.
Now, what I'm trying to tell you is that there at least one more bullet can be provable just by the physical evidence. And what I just mentioned with one bullet each, and each of the 5 victims were picked out of their bodies. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
That's not ricochets. There were 2 lodged in Kennedy. That's 7. 2 in the door frame. That's 9. That's physical evidence. That's not ricochets. I mean, I studied it very closely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sirhan did not have time to reload. That's not in dispute.
Yeah.
He only had 8 bullets in his gun. Caesar had 9. But my point is this, is that I'd like to know, what are the other possibilities of a caliber bullet? Could something that was a hollow point be that would mushroom into Kennedy's head? If we're not determining that it is a 22, and it made a pretty big hole, there were some people that asserted that it made twice as big a hole as a 22. What kind of gun would that be? Or could it be?
Well, if it was
Like,
twice as big, it
could.
could have been a 38, a 45, a 357. 357 would have gone straight through.
But there would be so much more.
Yeah.
There's so much to
Right.
release. A 22 caliber bullet's going to weigh between typically 32 and 40 grains. Anything at a larger caliber is going to be twice that weight easily and more.
A standard 38 caliber would have been
158.
Yeah, 158 grains, which is
4 times as much leftover material.
Yeah,
So let me ask you this. A lot of people said that Sirhan's gun was so small, being an Ivor Johnson, that you could have covered it with your hand.
Yeah.
Right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now my question is this. Now, when I interviewed this third gunman witness, who I also had placed under professional forensic hypnotism by a court-approved hypnotist, this person who described the gun that the third shooter was firing with his right hand, the third shooter's hand, they described it as like a bigger gun, bigger than something you could hold in just your hand. So what could that be?
That could be barrel
I'm
length.
not a gun expert, so I don't know.
Yeah, that could be a lot of different things. And listen, Jay, we're coming up on a break, so we got to go.
Okay,
but keep us.
Helped me a lot. I just wanted to kind of get some ideas. floating around.
We appreciate it, and give us a call another time, and we can see what else we can do. But you better quote us nicely.
Jay Margolis, people.
Don't worry about it. I don't ever misquote anybody.
Okay, very good, Jay. Thanks for the call. We'll talk to you later.
Jay, appreciate it.
Right, thank you.
Bye bye. Okay, that opens up a line.
866-870-5752.
All right, give us a call. We are taking calls now.
Let's go.
We'll be right back.
Yes, sir.